Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, June 12th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda, under 1.1, is the Land Acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Agenda item 1.2, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, acceptance of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda this afternoon? Seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting agenda for June 12, 2023 as presented? Councillor Reis, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.1, adoption of the previous minutes. The regular council meeting minutes from May 24th, 2023. There's a typo in there. Are there any errors or omissions in the meeting minutes from May 24th, 2023? Seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Just a correction, minor correction on 10.0. Verbal report from Councillor Beekman should be Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll make that correction. So I'll need someone to sponsor that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes from May 23rd, 2023 as amended. Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda under 4.1, delegation by appointment. We have our Staff Sergeant Mike Numan presenting the R.C.M.P. detachment update. So Staff Sergeant, if you want to come up to the table here, please. And whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors, and staff of Coaldale. Thanks for seeing me again today. Reporting on our quarterly basis as we try and do regularly. You would have all received the Q4 statistics previous to this meeting. That would include January to March 2023, so that's our Q4. And it contains a lot of material. I'll go through it a little bit, and if there's any questions on the content, obviously we don't have time to go through it line by line, but I'll give you the overviews and some of the highlights from the Coaldale R.C.M.P. aspect. With our community consultations, we continue to be quite active in consultations with all groups and committees, and just try and stay in touch with as many different agencies and organizations as we can, as seen by our consultations. I do know that this council has raised questions about the Victim Services Program and how that looks moving forward. That was supposed to have been taken over April 1st of this last year, or this year, 2023. The government has advised us that they are extending that another year till April of 2024 for anticipated transition into the new model, I guess it works. So don't have a whole lot of information other than they are going with the regional areas and trying to have each region with a director and that format. So more to come on that, I'm sure, as we get close. I think they realized it's a lot bigger initiative than they thought, for sure. And there's a lot of good employees and a lot of vested invested communities in this program locally. So I think they want to do it right. We also had a very nice blessing and naming of our new detachment. Some of you were present for that. I enjoyed that a lot. I learned a little bit that day as well, as I think we all did, and got to meet some of our stakeholders. So I appreciated your attendance there. We are taking part in crime reduction initiative meetings with all our partners, trying to combat crime as best we can. That includes with Lethbridge Police, federal and provincial parole officers, crime analysts, Blood Tribe Police, and some other agencies that call in some of the extended detachments around in southern Alberta. Just trying to, we're all dealing with the same group of people for the most part, or we have our own groups of people that we're dealing with, and we're just trying to problem solve and stay on top of it for sure. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my presentation. Continue to work with the an interesting one with the Lethbridge College. I'm on the School of Justice Working Program Advisory Committee. Just how we can, as an R.C.M.P organization, and I'm one of many, again, all those agents that I mentioned earlier are on that advisory group. How can we make Lethbridge's program better suited to Southern Alberta and to making effective employees to hire and that want to stay in Southern Alberta? So, and that's for not just us, but Lethbridge Police, the border services, and then parole and probation officers and all that type of enforcement. So enjoying that as well, and I got to tour some new facilities there, very impressive as well. Continue to work with the CPOs in town here very effectively. Mark and I have a great relationship, and we are not scared to call each other or reach out if we need help or get involved in things, so I appreciate that. Our community priorities for this last year, there was 3 of them, and they revolve around crime prevention, police community relations, and traffic. That seems to be and continues to be our 3 big priorities in the communities that we serve, not only Coaldale, but surrounding communities. So we are going to focus on that even more this year as well, and see how we can do a better job on that as well. You may have heard earlier today on the media, we are working quite intensely with our crime reduction unit out of Calgary. They're coming down on a weekly basis and giving our Coaldale members a hand with some of our prolific offenders. Last week we arrested 3 of our prolific offenders in Coaldale or that live in Coaldale, and that was a really good week and very productive. We continue to work closely with all our partners and make these arrests, and we hope the courts deal with them appropriately. We'll keep on that mission as best we can. On to the statistics for the town of Coaldale. If you look in your package there, it's a very brief, kind of just summarizes the major categories: persons crimes, property crimes, other criminal code. And we're seeing, which is expected, pretty much a 4% all the way to 23% increase in those types of crimes: person crimes, property crimes, other criminal code crimes. Attribute that to a couple things. Definitely life is back to normal for people, I think, post-COVID. I believe the messaging of people reporting crimes is getting through. We are seeing quite an increase in calls for service every day. We used to average 4 to 8. Now we're up into the 10 to 15 to 20 calls in one shift per shift. So that's a day shift and a night shift. So we're definitely seeing an increase in calls for service, and people are active for sure. The greatest increase would be the other criminal code, and I've explained to this council before, that would be your breaching of conditions in relation to no contact with somebody, domestic related type that we don't categorize, like there's too many of them to list all on here. We get lost in our own stats. So they call it other criminal code. So it's anything other than persons and property crimes. Traffic offenses for criminal code are up. That's impaired driving or driving while prohibited without a license in Canada, those types of offenses. And some of the other ones are down substantially as well. I'll move on to our staffing, which has always been a concern since I've arrived here. I'm happy to say that as of last week, I have 3 brand new corporals, so basically road supervisors. They're one on each watch, and they're all new in the role, and we're going to get them trained up and working really well in the communities. The biggest thing for us, for Dave and myself, is that we have that on-scene guidance and supervision real time on night shift or day shift on weekends or whenever Dave and I aren't at the office. So that's going to be a real key for us in making sure we get the best product to the public that we can. So we're happy with that. Still struggling a little bit with some of the vacancies. We don't have any hard vacancies right now, but we have 8 soft vacancies, which means your MATs, your PATs, ODS, all those types of leave that are still, they're not at work. And so that, some of those are short term, some of them are a little longer term, so we're working through that as well. But we are in a much better position now than we were when I first came to council here, when I first transferred here. And working hard with health services and all our partners to make sure that we try and keep those people or get them back to work as soon as we can, if that's in our ability. I am very proud of the hard work and accomplishments that the members that are working have done this last year. I think we've done a lot of community events. We've done a lot of proactive policing, and I've heard nothing but praise of increased visibility in the communities in the town of Coaldale from the public and from yourselves. So I'm going to continue on making sure that we provide that service. I don't think I'm going to go into the finance part of it. Mr. Hastings, I think I'll leave that unless there's specific questions. So there is quite a detailed finance portion to that, but I know you folks have budget talks and are quite aware of the financial situation there. Looking at my notes, I don't have anything else that I can provide for this quarter, but I certainly am open to any questions or comments from Mayor and Council or anybody in attendance.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council for any questions for Staff Sergeant. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and through to Staff Sergeant. Thank you so much for your presentation. And first of all, I want to say how appreciative we are of your leadership and what you've done to the Coaldale detachment here, and just hearing from the community and even from members how they really have enjoyed or are enjoying your leadership and working and finding that Coaldale is a great place to live, work, and play. And I think that they're really grateful to be here in this community. So that's a feather in your cap for the direction that you've shown, and leading by example has really been something that they really appreciate. Second thing, and that's both internal and external from the community. My questions were more for the report as you presented these quarterly reports. Obviously, the numbers that you're showing there more for the whole detachment, not just Coaldale alone.
No, these are for the town of Coaldale.
These will be just for the town of Coaldale. So it's interesting that I noted the same things that you've highlighted in your report here. And being that these are first quarter numbers, do you anticipate this to quadruple at all, or like at the rate that we're seeing these numbers, particularly examples of theft under 5,000 or even fraud, property, MDCs, like those numbers are pretty staggering, and from even last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, to answer your question, Councillor Chapman, I think, when we look at these statistics, that's from January to March, so that's only the spring part of winter. Since April, we've really noticed an increase in calls for service. But on the other hand, we're also combating that by making these arrests and trying to, in our detachment, we have a board, and each member is assigned to a certain person. Anybody on curfew, on any kind of conditions, we're going every shift, making sure that they're abiding by that and laying the appropriate charges. So we're hoping to try and keep tabs on these people the best we can. And I don't know if we're getting back to pre-COVID living where, it's just the summer's here and people are back to doing what they're doing. We have a small percentage. Again, I've told this council before, we have 5% of the people committing 90% of the crime, right? So 5 or 10%. So if we can focus on, and that's our crime reduction strategy, is focus on those 10% or 5% and make things uncomfortable and make them want to not interact with the, it's not just us, it's probation, it's parole. They all have conditions and things they have to respond to. So we want to make sure that they're abiding by the conditions. If that's what the court chose to do, is release them on conditions.
Any other questions for the staff sergeant? I just have one, Mike, regarding social media posts. Is there anything that we as a town can be helping getting the messaging out on our social media platforms? Do you guys have any templates you want us to share regarding any, or something quarterly or?
Yes, I know that we have our own K-Division social media, but that's more difficult to access. There is monthly or quarterly educational, like anti-fraud stuff, and I believe I've shared some of that with this council before with Kaylin, and I think you guys put that in your, but I will certainly keep that in mind. Same with, I think maybe we'll use our media strategy to announce any charges or anything like that. But anything for safety, or I know I was going to say the online crime reporting tool.
Yes,
we're starting to see an increase in that use, and I think that's convenient for people. Everybody live on their social media, so if they can use their phone and use the app, we're certainly promoting that. That's that same information. If we want to repost that maybe again,
yes,
that would be great.
And then the problem that we have with social media, and I've had text messages, emails about people complaining about something that's been happening in their neighborhood, and you spoke to the 5 to 10% group that cause 90% of their crime. And then I always ask them, do you report it? And then half the time they say no. So it's important for those reports to be made, so it becomes part of your stats here as well.
Absolutely. And along with those people that were checking the curfews, we have about a handful of residences within the town of Coaldale that we're probably all aware of, that we are continuing working with your CPOs on, clean up in any way to make sure that they're abiding by the law, for sure. So that's part of our strategy as well. So.
Okay. And then is it safe to say, I'll ask Cameron Mills, our Director of Growth and Investment, there is a stat that you shared a week or two ago that Coaldale has the lowest crime rate in Alberta. Is that correct?
For communities between 8,000 and 11,000 people.
Okay. Excellent.
Let's hope we keep it there.
Yes, keep up the good work. I echo Councillor Chapman's comments, as does all the council. So if there's no more questions for our staff sergeant, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And hopefully maybe spread amongst your members that we're having our grand opening on Saturday. If anybody wants to come and participate in that would be great.
I will definitely spread that. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 6.1, business arising from the minutes. We have our Director of Operational Services, Justin MacPherson, and our Public Works Supervisor, Terry May, presenting regarding a street lighting update. And just before you gentlemen start, I just wanted to pass on a lot of positive comments that we as a council have heard on the street and on social media, how great the big equipment petting zoo went on the weekend. So make sure you pass that on to your staff as well. We really appreciate you guys putting that together.
Will do.
Okay, whoever's presenting, go ahead.
So, good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Terry May. I'm the Public Works Supervisor. I'm bringing back a subject that's gone through Council a few years ago now, and we're looking to just reaffirm that we want to continue on with this project. And I'll briefly go over the history of this. 2019, Council approved an upgrade to the streetlights. This report basically lays out the initial request. We had approval for $298,000, but that was only for roughly 27 lights. Then we brought it back at the end of 2018 to because we could go above ground, which Council approved. And since that time, we've been working on these area at a time. Over the last 3 years, we have put in 140 streetlights in town, and we have one small area left, and we have about $46,000 in that initial budget. So we're not here to ask for any extra money. We're just want to confirm with Council we want to continue on with this project and finish the small area, which has been added onto that attached. So, like I say, it has gone on a little longer than we had anticipated, unfortunately, with COVID and the pandemic and the engineering required to this and the stage approach we took. It just took a little longer than we anticipated, but we thought it was wise to come back and just reaffirm that we want to continue on with the project.
Okay, thank you. And I'll start off with a question for our CAO or for our CFO. If these lights were budgeted previously and we're still within budget, can you explain the reason why we even have to talk about this?
I can, do you want me up there or
Please,
such a go?
just pull up another chair.
It's often the case where we have projects that when we're doing budget in the spring, in the winter, that we kind of expect or think that they may be completed by the end of the year. And so there's those funds that have been previously approved, but they haven't been, they were unspent and they haven't really been approved to be carried forward to another budget year. This was kind of an item that straddled a year, straddled different council terms. And so we thought it was best just to check up with council just to make sure that this is something we want to continue, because the item was never specifically brought to this council to be approved to be carried forward to the next budget.
Okay, thank you. Don't go away yet.
Okay.
Another question. I'll open up to council. Are there any further questions for either of these gentlemen? Councillor Reis.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, and through to Terry or Justin. So there's some new streetlights. I'm guessing about 30 of them over on 16th Street and that new road, that goes towards the school. I'm not sure what street number that would be. But is that a carryover from 2019 council, or where did that money come from to put up those?
That was all a part of that project for 16th Avenue, I believe.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was part of the 16th Avenue project, so that was a separate project. This project is to cover existing areas within town that were considered dark spots. There was a lot of resident complaints and a lot of concerns from council about crime and just a lot of dark spots for safety for traffic. So that's what this project identified, and then over the course of the years between lower prices, as Terry said, allowing lights to be ran overhead instead of underground, which is significantly cheaper. And Fortis, one thing that wasn't considered in the original budget is Fortis actually invests in streetlights. So part of their investment in the streetlight has extended this budget into this year. As you can see, the one in fall of 2022, Fortis actually did that at a cost of $0. So that's how this budget kind of keeps accelerating. So this was to cover existing areas in Coaldale.
So the area that Councillor Reis is speaking on, is 16th Ave, that was part of that 4.5 million, if I remember, for the upgrades. When we did the paved roads and the deep services going to the school and the rec center, that was part of that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for anyone? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you through to you guys. And I guess my question is with regards to some of the gaps that are still left. I'm thinking of Main Street, where we had some gaps last year, particularly around the arena area, and it still is fairly dark there in certain spots there. I'm just wondering if there is some plans to add at least one more light in there with the amount of traffic and pedestrian traffic that's occurring from, especially throughout the fall and winter, early spring.
There hadn't been, that's the first time that I've heard the request for that area. I do have one other one that is not on the map, that I just got actually at the big equipment event, so we could look at that one as well. But I certainly think that I can look at it, like I said. It's what we had in plan for the areas that are highlighted there. The remaining budget would cover that. So there might be some room there to add a few more if that is an area you want to look at.
And I did get a request or question regarding street lights in front of the Total Automotive, and of course I said, well, I don't have any control over that. You have to talk to you to the right staff to deal with that, or put in a complaint or request on that, because there's a lot of other logistics around moving a street light, 100 feet or 50 feet or across the street or whatever.
That is all going to go forward for that 13th to 17th Street. Fortis has brought back a design. We've approved the design. They're going to move it off the sidewalks. That's all going to happen. I don't want to commit to their time frame, but within the next month or two, that they're going to replace. They have to replace the underground there because it's old and aging. They have to replace it, so they're going to move back the streetlights off the sidewalk and improve that.
Good, thank you.
So a question for our CFO. Is there funding in place, like as complaints come up, whether it be this year or next year, in the budget to cover off some of these dark areas that we get this looked after? Or is this a one-off where someone makes a complaint and it has to come back to us to get approved?
Just for street lighting?
Yes.
There is not any specific item in the budget, in the operating budget for streetlights. So back to the originalities of this program, I believe we had close to $1 million in our electrical reserve. That reserve doesn't get added to every year. So the funding from this came out of that. So if it's something that council wants to add as a discretionary budget every year, that would likely be a funding increase. What we've done is when we're taking these projects and we're taking them from the reserves, that's good, but we just have to be mindful of the strategy that we're not taking too much without starting to replenish that reserve. So to shorten that, no, there isn't an annual thing in the budget, but that's something that come September we can have deeper conversation with council if you want to incorporate something like that into the budget.
I guess the reason I bring that up is, have the complaints gone way down since we did all these upgrades? That's something we don't need to worry about?
I've only heard of the one that Councillor Chapman mentioned today, and the other one for it's actually 16th Avenue, but at Station Grounds. But it's not on the map that has already addressed those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reis.
Thanks, Mayor. I've heard of one complaint myself, but it's in neither of those areas either of you guys are talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere on 19th or something like that. Somewhere over there by Dairy Queen.
Okay.
Like behind there, that's where I heard about it.
So when you get a complaint like that, maybe directors to our CAO, if he can get the name of the complainant with the address, and then we can follow that up.
And is that, because the last section of area is actually that spot behind Dairy Queen in the neighborhoods there, on 12th Street, 11th Street, that whole area is going to have, the last drawing I saw was about 15 additional lights added. So it may be included in that?
Yeah, I don't think it is actually.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, where they were talking about, I didn't report to RCO because I didn't really think anything of it. My bad.
So if there's no more, Councillor Pickering, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Is this work gonna be completed this year? Do you know?
Yes. If this is everything that's listed up there, could be completed this year.
Okay.
And then it would be finished with that initial project. And then it would just be if there were yearly problem areas, we could address those on a smaller scale.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, with regards to development and growth, is that part of a budgetary issue that we're gonna have to deal with regards to adding more streetlights as we encounter more development and growth in the town?
No, all new stuff that's part of the development agreement, all that's dealt with. So we have three options before us. Could someone please sponsor one of the three? Councillor Chapman.
I'll move that council reaffirms the street lighting project use of the remaining budget to complete the outstanding area.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 6.2, we have our Chief Financial Officer and Deputy CEO Kyle Beauchamp presenting regarding property tax recovery. Kyle, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, this report is just designed to close the loop on roll number 215-112-100 that we presented to council at the February 27th meeting, in which the terms of auction were approved by council. So the property was listed for a reserve bid of $114,500 and was sold for 122 Spruce Woods Country Estates. We do have a copy of the minutes from that auction attached to the staff report. So this is more of an information item just to, again, close the loop for council, let you know that this item has been transferred over and is taken care of. So open up to any questions from council.
Thank you. I have one question. So the $120,000 that was raised with the sale of that property, how much of that was actually owed to the town of Colda?
I believe once everything washed out with legal fees and whatnot, it was between $105,000 and $110,000.
So what happens with the reserve?
The excess will get sent out to the mail. A check will get mailed out to the previous owner. If that check is cash, it's his funds. If it's not, the funds sit in a separate bank account for 10 to 15 years, in which they are able to make an application to have those funds returned to them. If after those 10 to 15 years no application is made, it becomes funds for the town of Coaldale.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Reis, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have a question. I was just going to move the council accept the report's information.
Okay, so just to clarify that council received the property tax recovery report on roll 215-112-100 as information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Moving on to agenda item 7.1 under bylaws and policies. We have our Director of Growth and Investment, Cameron Mills, presenting regarding land use bylaw rezoning amendment 874-P-06-23 regarding first reading. Go ahead, Cameron.
Thank you very much. So what we have here is an amendment to the land use bylaw to amend a piece of property in town within the southeast of 920 west of the 4th from its current institutional recreational zoning to a direct control district. This is a little bit different than a typical rezoning for us. This is more of sort of an administrative solution to a broader problem. So to provide some context to council, we had previously purchased land within this quarter from Mr. John Van Heerden as part of our Malloy Phase 1B. What was the phase? I don't recall.
Phase 2A.
Phase 2A, there you go. So the wetlands on the west side of town, south of the highway. Within the sales agreement, it was noted that we would sell back to Mr. Van Heerden the lands. Once the final design came in and the project was done, we would sell back the excess lands back to that party, which was fine. However, we had recently completed a subdivision through the Municipal Planning Commission in order to do that. And one of the conditions of that subdivision, which would be a standard condition for a case like this, is that that parcel is then folded into the broader parcel within the quarter section so that it doesn't create sort of a standalone acreage in the middle of the quarter, which is not the intention, and rather is incorporated into the larger piece, because we don't want sort of an oddly shaped lot in the middle of the quarter preventing us from ultimately developing the lot for urban style purposes. There is an area structure plan which is currently in the works for the area. So that's standard in terms of how that would be done. However, the remainder lands are no longer owned entirely by that individual, rather it's owned by, he owns a portion of a company that owns those lands. And so there's some difficulty with respect to how to transition that in while the full ownership of this particular piece is due to him, whereas he doesn't have full ownership of the rest of it. So it caused a bit of an issue. So what we've proposed here is rezoning to direct control. And Mr. Van Heerden understands that the purpose of this rezoning to direct control is to fundamentally remove any opportunity for building on the area. Technically, you could come with an application to council for something, but the idea being that this zoning would be relatively temporary in nature while the area structure plan is being done. Once the area structure plan is being done, these lands are then incorporated into those lands, and ultimately you might see 10 or 15 urban-sized lots that are come in place to imply that zoning. Further subdivision can occur, all the rest of that. What we don't want to see, if we applied, say, the urban reserve zoning to these areas and allowed for this one piece to happen, was that if he came forward and said, well, I want to plunk a house down in the middle of it, we would have no choice but to approve it. There are issues with respect to the fact that there is no road that leads to this parcel. There's other problems. So by placing the direct control of district in place as a temporary measure, we can solve the problem of ensuring that the parcel doesn't sort of get in the way of future development, while also solving Mr. Van Heerden's problem of the issue of the ownership of this parcel versus that parcel. So administratively, we were very comfortable with this solution, knowing that within a span of 5 years or so, we're likely to see this go away and have a more constructive zoning in place. The idea being that if we did receive approval for this, we would then go back to the subdivision or back to the Municipal Planning Commission for an amendment to its subdivision approval to remove the clause that requires it to be merged back in with the remainder parcel. I hope that's clear. I can't tell. I might have been rambling quite a bit. But that's fundamentally the idea. So we show the picture here. The area shown in the hash marks is the land that's being returned to Mr. Van Heerden, and that would be the area for which the zoning would be applied.
Thank you. Any questions for Cameron? Councillor Reis.
Thanks, Mayor. Through to Cam. I'm not 100% sure where this is located. Could you explain it a little bit?
Sure. So it's just these units here are the acreages which front on the 30th Street. So the golf course would be here.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. So right on the west end of town.
okay,
So it'd be in behind those acreages.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Pickering, you got a question?
I was just concerned, thanks, Mayor Van Rijn. Did you purchase that land from Mr. Van Heerden, and then now that we're returning it, is it getting returned back at a certain rate, or how is that working?
How does that work?
Probably a few people around the table might be able to answer that. It would be for the same unit rate per acre as what we bought it for.
Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you recall, Councillor, we discussed this at MPC to bring this back to him, and we discussed a dollar amount, and it was the same amount as what we were purchasing, because we had to ask the CAO the question that night as well. purchasing and then selling back. So, yeah, it's very clear.
Go ahead, Kayla.
Yeah, and I can, further augment, and the area that's in the hash marks, we originally thought that that was required for the project in order to have a major clay stockpile. But we were able to find a home for the clay much quicker than we thought, so then we ended up overbuying what we actually needed for the project. So this was the agreement is take what you need and then sell off and whatever you don't need, and we pre-set out those amounts back in, I think it was 2017.
And then the funds that we recoup from that will be placed where?
It would be they're unbudgeted, so it would be a surplus that I would have to look back to see where the original funds came from.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for our presenter? Councillor Chapman.
Just more of a comment that I didn't see. I would like this map on the.
Yeah, it was attached to the document, but for whatever reason didn't show up.
Any further questions? Could I get someone to consider sponsoring that council provide first reading of land use bylaw rezoning amendment 874-P-06-23? Deputy Mayor Beekman, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Moving on to agenda item 8.1 under new business. We have our Chief Financial Officer and Deputy CAO Kyle Beauchamp presenting again regarding the appointment of our Municipal Auditor. Go ahead, Kyle.
So back at the second council meeting in April, we had a Vail CPA from Lethbridge presenting the town's audited financial statements for the year ended 2022. That was the end of their 5-year contract as municipal auditor. And then so in accordance with the MGA section 280, council must appoint the municipal auditor. So with Avail's original 5-year contract ending with this past year, on May 3rd, we put out a selective RFP to 5 local vendors, to commence the process of getting proposals for the town's financial auditor. So of the 5 vendors to which proposals were sent out, 3 were received back. We received proposals from Vail CPA, who is the town's current auditor, BDO Canada, and KPMG. BDO and KPMG are both in Lethbridge as well. Following receiving those proposals, 3 members from administration met to review and provide a recommendation here to council. So the recommended winner based on the criteria attached to this report is Vail CPA. Their fees for the next 5 years total $111,450, assuming nothing within the scope of the audit changes over that period. So the fees for the time frame are listed on the staff report here. So it is admin's recommendation that we appoint Vail CPA as the municipal auditor for the next 5 years. This will mark no change from current practice of who we have auditing now. So I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions on this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Kyle?
Let's make a motion that we accept your recommendations for the approval of Vail CPA.
Okay, just before I call the question, Deputy Mayor Beekman had a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in your past dealings with Vail CPA, are you satisfied with the work that they've been doing?
Very. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor by Councillor Chapman that the council appoint a Vail CPA as a municipal auditor for a 5-year period from 2023 to 2027. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8.2 under new business. Again, we have Kyle presenting regarding the 2024 budget calendar. Go ahead, Kyle.
So the last council meeting, I gave you the good news that we're all done talking about taxes, and now we're starting to move into budget season. So off to one meeting on to another. We're trying to get ahead of this a little bit from previous practice, and before what we've done with budget and council is we've gotten to September, October, and we've kind of done the mad scramble for budget dates here. And what I wanted to do was present council with kind of a draft budget calendar so we can have the dates kind of ahead. You can plan for them better around your own calendar, as well as have kind of a better understanding about what you can expect from, and the public can also expect from the budget meetings that were upcoming. So I do have a draft budget calendar presented here. So the idea is that the first meetings would start in September, and doing a little different approach that we've done in the past. First would be a service level discussion. The intention here is that departments would present to council what they are essentially, what level of service they're able to provide to the community based on the budget that they have there. So the goal from this is that council will have a better understanding of what the departments can currently provide for service with the budget. Hopefully that should give council some additional information if you want to increase or reduce service levels within the various departments of the town. The second budget meeting we have scheduled here for October 1st. October 4th is a draft, kind of follow up from the previous meeting, as well as an open forum from council and administration to kind of get the hamster wheels turning, what we want to see for budget discussions over the next couple months here. And essentially then it's just follow-up meetings and draft budget discussions with council administration. I do have two tentative approval dates there, November 27th and December 11th for a budget. Those will be tentative based on how many meetings we need, or council feels they need to complete the budget deliberations. So I am proposing that council can either adopt the budget calendar as presented, we can make any amendments, or council can defer this to another meeting if they want to have any additional conversations before then. Our ultimate amendment is to have something set in place before summer break here. And I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So for myself, I have conflicts on the 2 November dates on the Thursday. What's the chance of moving them to the Wednesday with the approval of the rest of the council, or changing the November dates to the 9th and the 23rd instead?
So it's just the November dates you have
Yes.
conflict? Yep, shouldn't be a problem.
So can we back it up a day to the Wednesday to keep all those meetings on Wednesday nights then, or is that a conflict for yourself?
I could probably make it work. I'm open to, I'd rather have it work for council and have my schedule work around it.
Is everybody okay moving it to the Wednesday instead of Thursday?
Yeah, this is November.
November, yes.
What date, what week?
It would be November 1st and November 15th, which would be Wednesday.
Just a question, Mayor.
Just before you ask your question, are you okay with those dates then?
Yeah, because it leads up to my other question, is just with regards to a couple of other commitments we're making as council to attend AUMA and RMA, whether some of those dates fall, your meeting dates will fall on those nights.
Yeah, I did consider those.
You did?
Yep. They will be overlapping.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So one more time, everybody's okay with moving them to a Wednesday night then? Okay, thank you. So then, is there any other questions for Kyle? So then, I'd be looking for someone to make a motion that council approve the 2024 budget calendar as amended.
Mayor, sorry, I did just notice here in the 2023 town calendar, the 8th will conflict with MPC. November the 8th.
We can.
I don't think we have one scheduled for November 8th.
And we've got November 1st and November 15th.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
RMA,
I don't know why I
think
thought the 8th
conflicts
was
with
there.
November 8th. Okay. RMA.
So again, I'm looking for someone to approve that council approve the 2024 budget calendar as amended. Councillor Saylor.
Sorry, just before you call, I never mentioned it, but I'm assuming we're sticking with 5 p.m. meeting dates or meeting times.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, motion on the floor by Councillor Saylor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. Moving.
Can you send those out like a calendar?
Yep.
Placeholder?
Yep, you bet. Moving on to agenda item 12.0, information items. We have the Community Builders Award called for nominations by MP Rachael Thomas. That's being sent to all of council. Also, the town of Coaldale has posted on all their social media platforms, and several of us on council have also shared that. So Rachael reached out to make sure that we were sharing it, and we are. And any questions on that one? Okay, can I get someone to make a motion to receive the correspondence from MP Rachael Thomas's information? Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then agenda item 12.2, we had a thank you letter from the Family Fun Run, letter of thanks. That was a fun event. It raised a lot of money for a couple of projects in Coaldale, so it was well received. Any questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion that council receive the correspondence from the Family Fun Run as information? Deputy Mayor Beekman, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then 12.3 and 12.4 were meeting minutes from March 1st and April 5th from Barron's, Barica, Warner, FCSS. Any comments, questions on those? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for council's information, FCSS Barron's Barica will be holding their strategic planning next week in Picture Butte at the Coyote Flats Museum up there.
Just make sure it's not the basement of the county office. They called a meeting at Coyote Flats, and Jason Beekman and I went out in the dead of winter in a blizzard there at the wrong location.
Well noted.
Okay. So
I'll move to accept those minutes.
So motion by Councillor Chapman that council receive Barron's, Barica, and Warner FCSS minutes from March 1st and April 5th as information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the open portion of the meeting. I will require a motion that council move to go into closed session in accordance with section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from the disclosure for items 13.1 subject to section 17 personal privacy, items 13.2 and 13.3 subject to section 16 business interests of a third party, and item 13.4 subject to section 23 local public confidences and section 27 privileged information. Can I get someone to sponsor that motion, please? Councillor Reis. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And that is at 5:53 p.m. We will take a 10-minute break. Thank you.